DND number 9, Circle of Life. In Jesus' name, chapter 20. It's May 3rd, late Friday afternoon, Keno Estate, Crystal Cove, California. Here's what I have so far, Jason Lee said as he tossed a folder onto Eric's desk containing several 8x10s. As I told you yesterday, the call came from a diner in Compton. The phone belonged to a waitress there by the name of Nora Grace. He pointed to one of the pics Eric had spread out in front of him. She says a woman said she had an emergency and asked to borrow her phone. Ms. Grace heard her ask for Eric Keno Sr., but that's all she heard. A few minutes into the conversation, a car drove up to the front door of the diner and blew its horn. The woman put the phone down on the counter and hurried out. These are pictures of the woman from the camera inside the diner. The outside cams are not operational. Of course, Eric said softly. He looked at the brothers, Jason and Justin Lee, who so often had sat in his study with him, either trying to figure out solutions to problems or praying together or talking about nothing in particular. They were the best friends a man could have. So now what? Good question, Jason answered. Looking at these pics of the woman, I'd say she appears to be in her 30s. Long dark hair in a ponytail, medium height, medium build, possibly Latino or just a good tan. Miss Grace says the car that picked the woman up was not a cab. It was dark gray. She thinks it was a Hyundai Santa Fe, and that is only because she used to have one herself. She says the woman seemed scared or nervous. Eric shook his head. She said she'd call me back, and yet it's been 2 days and I've heard nothing. I mean, really, I hope she's still alive. Jason sighed. He'd been running Ameritech security for almost 30 years, and he'd seen more evil in this world than he ever dreamed existed, and he was no innocent. I hope so, too. Though I have to say, Eric, there is a strong possibility that she is not. Eric nodded, his jaw pressed tightly together. I know that look, Justin Lee said. Eric glanced over at his best friend and Jason's brother and raised a questioning brow. That look tells me you think you should have jumped in quicker, thrown caution to the wind and offered to meet her or come get her. It's the guilty look you so often try to tell everyone else not to have. Eric shrugged. I guess you have me pegged. Eric, Jason jumped in. There is no way that you can run out of here to meet up with just anyone who calls, at least not without backup. Well, then maybe I should have immediately offered to meet her and called you for backup and taken off. And now you're playing what if, Justin said, another useless game. Eric nodded. I'm just hoping some poor innocent didn't call me as her last resort and I let her down. Understood, the brothers said at the same time. So what's next? Eric asked. Can we find this Santa Fe? I'm working on it. I'm pulling video from other buildings in the area, trying to get a plate number. There are over 3,000 Santa Fe's registered in California. It'll take a few days. Eric nodded. I have a strong feeling about this. I can't just let it go. Well, we'll do everything we can to find this woman, Jason said. New scene. It's May 4th, Saturday morning, Pine Forest Country Inn, Pine Forest, Georgia. It was on. Jake was suddenly acting like a 10-year-old kid before his big birthday party, except maybe he was more nervous than excited. Jody and Grams laughed at him as he went over the checklist of all of Lena's favorite foods that they were preparing for the picnic, at least all that were appropriate for a picnic. She loved sub sandwiches with all the trimmings. She loved Miss Maddie's chocolate brownies. She loved watermelon. She loved potato salad. Check, check, check. Don't forget anything, he said. Jody laughed. We won't. You don't forget the ring. I won't, I hope. He looked around. Dad, try to get out of class fast, okay? Stop worrying. I'm going to leave class early. Master Jean is going to finish it out for me. Jake nodded. Okay. Then I'm just going to call Aunt Lisa to make sure all the blankets and hay bales and chairs for the grands are ready, and they are, and I know that because I just spoke with her. And I also just spoke with Lizzie. Lily and Daisy have gone into town to pick up the flowers. Keegan already has the sign and the clips to attach it to the bales. We got this, Jake. Now, You go take some time to calm down and to start this day with the most important thing. A shower? A prayer. Jake nodded. Will you guys pray with me? We'd be honored, John said. Thanks, Dad, and will you honor me by saying it? Of course. They stood in a circle, John, Jody, Jacob, and Maddie, their hands clasped, as John gave thanks for the day, for their family, for his son, and for his soon-to-be daughter-in-law. He asked God to bless Jake's and Lena's relationship, to bless their union to come, and to bless himself and Jody with lots of little grandbabies, which got a laugh. He prayed in Jesus' name and ended it, looking up at his son with all the love he felt as the father of a remarkable young man. Jake smiled at his dad before he was grabbed and hugged. Lots of grandbabies, Dad? You're getting a little ahead of yourself, aren't you? John grinned. I have faith in you. New scene. What took you guys so long this morning? Lisa asked in exasperation as Chaz and Lanebug came in the kitchen door. Chaz nodded at his daughter. She insisted on washing Santana this morning since he's going to be starring in Gabe's video today. And then she decided she wanted to braid Honey's mane with ribbons. Lisa sighed. Well, y'all have some breakfast, please. And then, Bugs, I want you to take a shower and let me do your hair. Why? Lisa rolled her eyes. For Gabe's video and because you smell like horses. Well, I'll just spritz some body spray and put on the dress. No one will care what I smell like. And I'll just stick my hair up into my hat. Lisa's eyes got big. You will take a shower and let me do your hair, and that's the end of that. No daughter of mine is going to be on some video looking like something the cat dragged in. It's just a video for a school project, Mom. The horses are the stars. Lisa glared at her husband, obviously asking for his help. He jumped in. The video is being made by a guy who is currently trending across the country. It may end up streaming right alongside everything else. So, Bugs, placate your mother and let her do your hair. Please. Lena sighed. Okay, fine. But I don't see the big deal. Lisa blew out a relieved breath. One day, she just might strangle this hard-headed girl. New scene. How you feeling, kiddo? Heather asked as she poked her head into Gabe's bedroom. Gabe sat up and stretched. Feeling pretty good. You feeling good enough to come watch our friends get engaged? Of course. I'm really glad it's happening. I'm really glad I got to come home last night. Me too. And I'm glad to come home. I didn't want to miss this. Gabe frowned. What's wrong? Heather asked. It's just that, you know what, Heather, I hardly ever get to see you anymore. I don't like you living up in Tennessee. She came in and sat on his bed and took her brother's hand. I miss you too, little bro. But I can't stay home forever. You know I'm working with several ranches up there. I'm doing what I love. Well, can't you do that down here? Well, I suppose I could. She sighed. I'll tell you a secret, though. Okay. She looked into his eyes so he'd know how strongly she felt concerning what she was about to say. I've met a guy, and I think he's the one. Really? Yes, really, Heather said with a sigh. He's the youngest son of one of the ranchers I'm consulting with. He's a veterinarian, but I think he also helps run his father's ranch. How old is he? He's 28. Gabe thought a moment. Does he believe in God? Heather smiled at her brother, so like her father. Yes, I actually met him at church. I didn't even know he was the son of one of the ranchers. It's like it was meant to be. So, is he a good guy? Like, is he kind? Heather's brow wrinkled. Of course. Is he nice looking? She frowned. Well, I think he is. He's almost as cute as you. Gabe frowned. Does he have a temper? No, at least not that I've seen, she said slowly, wondering what her brother was thinking. He's very calm and happy. Gabe thought, so what's the deal? What are you getting at? I'm just wondering, why are you keeping him a secret? Why have you not told Mom and Dad about him? What's wrong with him? She laughed. Well, he robs banks as a sideline, and I'm trying to figure out how to let Dad know without him blowing his top. Very funny, sis, but I'm not kidding. She smiled sweetly at her brother. Oh, Gabriel Tanner, I just love you so much. You're stalling. Okay. Well, I didn't want to get Mom and Dad's hopes up that I might be getting married if it doesn't work out. It's only been a few months. We've only dated a handful of times. If it starts to get more serious than just a casual relationship, then I'll tell our parents. Until then, this is just between you and me. And 4 others, he said. Nope, I haven't even told the twins yet, for pretty much the same reason. Gabe nodded. Okay. So, because you understand how difficult it is to be away from someone you think you may be in love with, you can understand how much I want to be near my guy. Yeah, I get it, 'cause I really miss Taylor. I know you do. And I really miss Nolan, and he misses me too. Nolan? Yes, Nolan Sawyer. Gabe smiled. I think I'll Google him, check him out. She shrugged. Google away. He knows all about you. Me? Yes, silly boy, everyone knows about you. I'm so proud to have you as my brother. I'm so proud of the young man you're becoming. Hey, do me a favor. Shoot. Don't let all this stuff change you. Stay humble. He nodded. I won't let it change me. I won't get all caught up in being famous. I've been praying to God to help me figure out how to use this opportunity to serve him. Her eyes teared up. Little bro, what you just said, it just makes me so proud of you. Well, those words didn't really come from me. They came from Joey Adams. Again, with the humility, I can't even. She hugged him. I love you so much, Gabe. Oh, and I almost forgot the reason I came up here. Mom wants to know if you're coming down for breakfast or would you rather she bring it up to you? I'll come down. She rose and started to leave. Remember our secret? He smiled. I got it. New scene. I love your hair, Lisa sighed as she moved the wide-toothed comb through the thick red tresses. Lena giggled. Well, Mom, since it's exactly like yours, I guess you have no choice. Do you like it? Lisa asked. I admit there are times I'd like to just chop it all off, but I have so many people tell me how pretty it is. I kind of hate to do that, but it's okay because I can just braid it back out of my way whenever I don't want to mess with it, which is most of the time. Well, it is beautiful. My mother hated my hair. I used to grow it out to impossible lengths just to spite her. She always wanted me to chop my hair off. She made me keep it short when I was younger, but not because it looked good that way, but because she didn't want to be bothered with brushing it. Lena shook her head. I've heard all the stories, the mean things she did to you. I can't even imagine. You and we're so close. I don't understand how a mother cannot care about her child. And Graham's is so sweet, so it's not like she got it from her mother. Well, I've tried to understand it myself, sweetheart. I don't get it either. She stood back suddenly, her face pale. I'll be right back. Lena watched her mother as she left the room. She'd been acting strange lately, getting all teary-eyed, dizzy spells. She was thinking it probably had to do with Lena's assault. She would have to let her mom know that she really was okay. And she looked up as her mom reappeared, smiling. I'd like to give this to you, she said. She held out a rectangular-shaped, velvet-covered box. Lena opened it. It was a gold, heart-shaped pendant necklace. Oh, Mom, this is beautiful. Thank you so much. What's the occasion? Lisa shrugged. Do I have to have an occasion to give my daughter a gift? Well, no. Open the pendant. Lena opened it, and there were tiny pics of her and Jake. Oh, Mom, I love it so much. Tears came to her eyes. Thank you. They hugged for a long time, and Lena noticed her mother's hands trembling. Mom, are you okay? Of course I am. Are you sick? You've been a little weepy and sentimental lately, and you're pale, and your hands are shaking. Lisa pressed her lips together. I'm not sick, honey. Then what's wrong? Is it what happened to me? Because I am really okay, I promise. Lisa nodded. I'm glad to hear that, Bugs. You're such a strong girl, not just physically, but mentally tough. Lena smiled. Yeah, I'm a lot like my mom. Lisa nodded. And I'm also not stupid, Mom, so tell me, what's wrong? I can tell there's something wrong. Lisa sighed heavily. Okay, I'll tell you, but you have to swear to me you won't tell anyone until I have a chance to tell your father. You're scaring me. Promise me. Okay, I promise. Lisa bit her lip. I'm pregnant. Lena's mouth dropped open. No way. Lisa shook her head. I don't know how it happened. Lena laughed. Well, when two people love each other very, very much, ha ha, very funny. I mean, we've been really careful. And like, I'm old. You're not that old, Mom. You're what, about to be 46 in a few weeks? But I'm still trying to get out of my mind the visual of what you two being careful entails. Don't be shallow, sweetheart. Not only young people have sex. Lena wrinkled up her nose. Anyway, have you been to a doctor? How far along are you? And when do you intend to tell Dad? I have been to my doctor. She says I'm 8 weeks, and I'm going to try to tell him tomorrow. Why wait? She smiled. Well, just planning a time when he'll be relaxed and in prayer mode. Cool. So Sunday after church. Can't wait to see his reaction. Okay now, Lisa said. Let's get your hair done. I don't want you to keep Gabe waiting with him being just out of the hospital and all. New scene. Jake had both horses saddled and ready. Lena waved sweetly as she made her way down to the stables. She looked breathtakingly beautiful. The dress she wore had short little sleeves with a flounce at the shoulders. It was a pinkish coral color that went with her hair. It had pale green flowers printed on it and 2 tiers of ruffles near the hem. The square neckline was flattering, and she wore a gold heart pendant. Her long curls were pulled up on the sides and left hanging down in the back, and they were blowing in the breeze, and his body immediately reacted to the sight. He could just get a glimpse under the long skirt of her boots, and it made him smile. You look beautiful, Bugs, he said as she approached. She smiled sweetly. Thanks. You don't look half bad yourself in your Marines blues dress uniform or whatever. That is what it's called, right? Right, he murmured as he pulled her forward and kissed her softly. He glanced at his phone and shoved it in his pocket and patted his other pocket to make sure the ring hadn't magically disappeared and gestured toward the horses. Shall we? We don't want to keep Gabe waiting. Yeah, let's do this. And then afterward, let's grab a pizza because I'm starving. He grinned. Let's see. How are we going to get you on the horse without tearing that dress? Exactly, she said. I told you no one goes riding in a dress. Okay, well, we'll have to make do. You pull the dress up, step in my hands, and I'll toss you up onto the horse. She frowned, but pulled the skirt of her dress up to her waist. She was wearing little white shorts, but that didn't keep Jake's mouth from going dry. She stepped into the little stirrup he made with his hands, and he tossed her up onto the horse. He then went around the horse, pulling her dress down around her until she sat very prettily. You are something else, Bugs, he murmured. He turned and mounted Santana. They rode across the pasture to the meadow and down the hill. Lena could see the group of people at the picnic that they were supposed to join. Wow, I didn't know so many people were going to be at the picnic. It looks like he recruited everyone in the family, Lena remarked. He did, Jake said softly. Lena looked up at the setup. She could see 2 cameras on tripods, 4 large red and white checkered tablecloths spread out on the thick grass, a huge spread of food, several large hay bales in a row on the other side with a long white blank sign attached. She wondered what that was about. There were beautiful arrangements of flowers on the tablecloths, along the hay bales, and also in large milk cans around the whole area. She thought Gabe had gone to quite a bit of expense to make this video. Some people were sitting on the tablecloths, her younger brothers and sister, Erilyn, and also Gabe, holding little Iris. Standing were her mom and dad, Jake's mom and dad, Heather and both sets of the Anderson twins, and their mom and dad. She turned to Jake. Look, even Grams is here, And my Grandpa Joe and Grandma Shirley. And Grandpa Charlie and Nana Patty sitting in those chairs over there. Oh, and Aunt Cindy and Aunt Steffi. And Aunt Megan and Uncle Josh and Uncle Ty and Aunt Jenny. And my cousins. What the heck is going on? He grinned at her. Well, we really couldn't leave anyone out. You guys must really expect this video to be a big deal. He smiled. Absolutely. As they approached the group, several of the younger ones pulled out their cell phones and started taking video, and Lena puzzled about that, and she pulled back on the reins and came to a halt. Jake dismounted and came to her and helped her down off of Honey. She smiled up at him as he led her to the spot he'd marked off earlier. He stood her right there and stepped away a second. Pictures of the pretty girl first, he said, as pictures were taken. Someone told Lena to turn toward them, which she did, and when she turned back, Jake was on his knees, holding the ring box in his hand. She gasped and stepped back. What is happening? Come on, sis, I know you're smarter than that, Charlie said. Everyone laughed. Jake smiled up at her, his eyes glowing with the love he felt. Bugs, he said, being mindful to speak loud enough for the grandparents to hear. Hear me out. I didn't know that I loved you, but you knew it. And I didn't know that I needed you, but you knew it. I didn't know that we were meant to be together from the very beginning, but you did. And you showed me, and you taught me, and you put me in a very precarious position. That position being that I cannot live without you. I know you've waited for me to come home to you, to come for you. And I don't want you to wait any longer. I do love you, Milena, with all of my heart. And I would love the chance to tell you that every single day. I would love to have the chance to take care of you and protect you and love you, for you to do the same for me. I'm asking for us to worship God together, to learn and grow together, and to create a real family together. So I'm asking, Bugs. He motioned to the people stationed at the sign on the hay bales. They quickly unhooked the long sign, and it came unfolded, and in giant red letters read, Will you marry me? He repeated the phrase, Will you marry me, Milena Stewart? Lena looked around at all the people in the world that she loved so much. It was completely silent. They were waiting for her answer. She glanced at her mom, who was crying, and at Jake's mom, who was smiling so sweetly. She wanted to pause and take in the whole situation. She wanted time to look into everyone's eyes and see what they were feeling, because she wanted to remember this moment forever. But she realized that she was making it uncomfortable for everyone, especially Jake, who was looking a little worried. She smiled at him and reached down and touched his face. I thought this moment would never happen. And now, my fondest and greatest wish is coming true. I love you too, Jake, and of course I will marry you. He rose and placed the ring on her finger, pulled her close, and kissed her. He wanted to go on kissing her, but they were pulled apart as people congratulated them and hugged them and cheered and celebrated the moment. Lunch was served and enjoyed by everyone. Instead of champagne, there was beer and sodas and sweet tea, and the grandparents were served, and little Iris was pulled away from the brownies and fed a PB&J sandwich instead, and everyone else heaped food onto paper plates, grabbed a drink, and sat to eat. And one of the twins turned on her playlist. There was lots of laughter and love. Then Gabe asked Lily to turn off the music a second. Hey, Jake, Gabe said. I just want to say congratulations to you too. Thanks, Gabester, Jake said. And these guys also have something to say. He turned his phone around. Hey, Jake, congrats, man. You're a lucky guy, young Eric Keno said. I second that, Ricky Keno said. Congrats, you two, Bree and Taylor said together. Aw, thanks, y'all, Lena replied. Yep, thanks, guys, Jake echoed. Gabe turned his phone back to his own face. Less than a week now, Taylor. I can't wait to see you, she said softly. Me too. I can't wait to see you too. She giggled. Hey, Mom, Rose said, before Lily turns the music back on, and While we have everyone's attention, why don't you and Dad make your big announcement? Lizzie turned to her daughter, her eyes wide. What announcement? Keegan asked. You know, she prodded. He raised his eyebrows. No, I don't know. Shocked, Rose turned to her mom. I thought you said Dad knew. Lizzie looked like she would pass out. No, I said he didn't know. Oh, Mom, I am so sorry. Me and my big mouth. Keegan was frowning. Anyone want to fill me in? Lizzie's eyes immediately filled with tears as she realized there was no getting out of it now. I'm pregnant. Gabe's mouth dropped open right along with his father's. Elizabeth, why didn't you tell me? He put his arm around his wife. I was going to, but I just found out myself, and I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Well, I'm not. What better way than to find out right here with all the people we love around us? Too bad my parents aren't here, though I hate to rain on Jake's and Lena's parade. It's not raining from where I sit, Jake said. I think it's awesome. Me too, Lena said with a grin. As a matter of fact, I believe my mom has her own little announcement to make. Lisa turned on her daughter, the exact wide-eyed expression on her face that Lizzie showed moments earlier. Jake looked over at Lena. Are you sure you should have said that? She smiled, shrugged. Well, it's too late to reconsider now. Chaz had been leaning against a hay bale, his feet crossed, his arms folded across his chest. And instead of everyone turning to look at Lisa for the news, they all looked at Chaz, who was looking at his wife. And she gazed into his eyes and simply nodded, and his eyebrows shot up. Yep, I'm pregnant, she said softly. I don't understand how it happened. Well, Lena said loudly, when two people love each other very, very much. Everyone laughed. When Chaz didn't say anything, Jake decided to break the tension. Well, Uncle Chaz, looks like you still got it. Everyone laughed again. Chaz smiled and came forward to pull Lisa to her feet. He put his arms around her waist and kissed her. That's how it begins, Tyson yelled. More laughter. I want to toast 3 happy couples, Ty continued. But Rose interrupted. Wait, all girls, don't drink the water. There was more laughter. Ty finished his toast. To Lena and Jake, may you be as happy and fruitful as Lisa and Chaz, and Lizzie and Keegan, and may you all be happy and healthy and receive amazing blessings. Hear, hear, the men yelled, and everyone drank. Chaz sat down with Lisa on the grass. Were you afraid to tell me? Lisa shook her head. Not really afraid, but apprehensive. Did you think I'd be upset, or that I wouldn't want another child? Well, we hadn't really talked about it. You've never said anything about wanting another baby. Erilyn is 7, and you've never said anything. Darling, you're in your 40s, though let me just say real quick, you don't look it. It would be selfish of me to ask you for another child. Chaz, don't you know that I would give you anything you want, or at least whatever I could give? Well, that's a beautiful thing to say, my love. The question in my mind is, did you want to have another baby? Honestly, I hadn't thought about it. I figured that part of my life was over, and you know, as you get older, there can be complications. She placed her hand protectively on her belly, but oh, I want this baby so much. Her eyes filled with tears. But it's going to be hard. Hard has never stopped us before, has it? Chaz asked. She shook her head. I'll take care of you, Red. I'll hire some more hands to help with the ranch so that I can spend more time with you. It's going to be okay. Besides, we needed a change. It's always good to stir things up a bit, and it's time for the boys to work a little more. When? Well, school's about to be out. Yes, but then there's rec baseball, and Erilyn has her dance classes, and don't forget martial arts, because they all want to be as good as Gabe and Jake now. And then there's the guns. Got to be crack shots. Even Erilyn is wanting to shoot. Okay. Don't get all worked up. Even if the boys don't do much more, they can do some, and Erilyn too, and I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it all, Lisa. Don't worry, babe. We got this. At the same time, Keegan and Lizzie were having a similar conversation. And the girls can help out more, and Gabe too, since he'll be out of school and hasn't decided whether he's going to college or not. Lizzie shook her head. The girls are getting jobs and working for the summer, and don't forget that Rose and Violet are getting ready to graduate, and Gabe, he's going to be busier than all of us, and it's him we're going to need to help. Elizabeth, Keegan said softly in his deep voice. We got this, sweetheart. I'll take care of you, I promise. If I have to work from home, I'll talk to Jason. I'll take care of you and the kids, and I'm pretty sure I can handle it. You do remember when we first met, right? Did I handle 5 small little girls with no problems? She smiled. You were magnificent. And when Gabe was born, you were amazing and so in love with that child. And since Iris came into our lives, you've been so adorable with her. I know you can handle it, but can I? I mean, I just turned 42 and she stopped and put her hand to her mouth. Keegan smiled when he realized what she just realized. Except for Gabriel, she'd always conceived around her own birthday. He reached out and cupped her face. We got this, Elizabeth. I promise. Jody and John Apple smiled at each other. They were going to need to plan their son's wedding now. Both of their neighbors and best friends were going to need their help. They were about to be in service big time. But they would do it because that was what they were here on this earth to do, and they loved serving the Lord. Jake and Lena sat cuddled together on the edge of a blanket. Were you really surprised, or are you just a great actress? Lena laughed. Oh, I was really surprised. I bought into all this Gabe stuff so easily. Not very smart of me, huh? Jake brushed his hand over her cheek. You are brilliant, and you know it. So did you like the proposal? It was perfect. Did our moms help? He chuckled. How'd you know? I know how they are, she sighed. 2 new babies coming. Isn't that amazing? It's pretty cool. One day, that will be us. How many children do you want? Lena asked. Well, I guess as many as you'll give me, she laughed. I'll give you as many as you want. Well, let's stick with as many as we can afford. But just think, Jake, you and me and little ones, you'll be such a good father. You think so? Of course I do. I wouldn't marry someone who wouldn't be. So, now that you've accepted my proposal of marriage, the next question is, what kind of wedding do you want, and when do you want to get married? She sat quietly thinking, then looked up at him suddenly as it hit her. You're leaving again. He nodded solemnly. When exactly? I don't have an exact date yet. I had 6 months with times to report for training, which I have to leave for again in 1 week. I'm down to about 4.5 months as long as I'm not spun up early, which is always a possibility. She nodded, trying not to show how scared that made her. She knew he was a Marine. She knew it meant the world to him to serve his country in some way. She would never interfere with that dream, but it did scare her. She looked up into his eyes. So, what you're really asking me is, do I want to marry you before you leave or after you get back? He nodded. That is pretty much the question. And if I wait, she stopped, thinking of the possibilities. She cleared her throat. If I wait, I would have time to plan a big, elaborate wedding. But also, if I wait, there's a possibility that... She couldn't bring herself to say it. The tears spilled over. "Aw, come on now, Bugs," he comforted. He pulled her close and let her cry. You already made her cry, his father teased. Jake looked up at him as he held Lena. She's crying over my impending death. Don't say that so casually, Lena said loudly. He chuckled. And it's not funny, she rebuked him. Sorry. She's right, Jake, Jody put in. It's not funny. However, it is the reality of being the wife of a Marine, and the mother of one, she added softly. It takes a strong woman to volunteer to do that, and I happen to know that you, Miss Lena, are about as strong as they come. Lena looked up at the sweet woman who was about to be her mother-in-law. She sniffed, wiped her tears, and nodded. I can do this. She looked at Jake. Let's get married before you leave. I want to know what it's like to love you completely before you go off to save the world. Jake's gut tightened at her words. He nodded and kissed her again. He looked up at their parents, who were apparently following their whole conversation. Looks like we're going to have a wedding within the next 4 months. New scene. So, sis, you are coming to my hooding ceremony, aren't you? Marissa Coley asked on the video call. She squinted at the phone, pulling at a few strands of her bangs to straighten them, then blinked back at her sister's face. Mickey Davis smiled at her little sister. She was so proud of her. They'd come through a hard time back when Marissa was just 16, and she'd floundered a bit. Who wouldn't? Marissa's father, Mickey's stepfather, a United States senator, had tried to kill Mickey and Jeffy Keno and had been found to have murdered many people, pretty much anyone who got in his way. Their mother, Marion, had sided with her husband and ended up in a mental hospital and eventually passed away from a weak heart from doing so many prescription drugs. Their mother had been as much of a victim as Talmon Daly's other victims. It just took her longer to die. Marissa had gone from being a relatively happy teenager to being confronted with the realization that her father was a monster and her mother was an addict. She got lost for a bit, had some bad relationships, but Grandmaster Keno had stepped in and counseled her and prayed over her and set her on her present path. Not only did she finally meet and marry an amazing man, Chris Coley, introduced to her by Jeffy Keno, but she was about to achieve an amazing feat. She was about to receive her PhD in psychology at NYU. You know it, sweetie. I'll be there with bells on, Jeff and the kids too. I'm just checking. You do know it's only a week away, right? Yes, hun, I know. Grandmaster Keno and Shelley and Jeffy and Cam are all coming. We're flying out together on Friday on one of Jason's jets. Well, I can't wait to see you. And I have a surprise for you. And that is the end of chapter 20.